out. Not through some dramatic confrontation or suspicious credit card bills, but through paper-thin walls and my wife's complete lack of discretion. I'm Eddie Morrison, 39 years old, manager at Precision Auto Parts here in Harlow, Massachusetts. I fix things for a living. Cars, trucks, lawnmowers, anything with an engine. What I apparently can't fix is my wife's wandering eye. Mitch is going to love this, I muttered, thinking of my best friend who owned the hardware store downtown. He'd been warning me about Jenna's new fitness obsession for months. I crept closer to the kitchen door, my work boots silent on the concrete. Through the crack, I could see Jenna pacing, phone pressed to her ear, wearing those tight yoga pants that cost more than my monthly beer budget. Matt, you drive me crazy. I bought something special for us, something that'll make tomorrow night unforgettable. Matt, the pretty boy personal trainer at Elite Fitness. 29 years old, abs like a washboard, and apparently screwing my wife. The same guy who'd given me a condescending nod last week when I picked Jenna up from the gym. I love you too, Jenna whispered into the phone. Eddie's always in that stupid garage anyway. He doesn't even notice I exist anymore. She hung up, and I heard her footsteps heading upstairs. I waited 5 minutes before following, my mind racing. 20 years. Our daughter Amy was starting her sophomore year at UMass. We had a mortgage, shared friends, a life together, and she was throwing it away for some muscle-bound moron who probably couldn't change his own oil. Upstairs, I heard the shower running. Jenna always showered after her phone calls with her sister. Right, her sister lived in Seattle and worked nights. The math never added up, but I'd been too trusting, or too stupid, to question it. I walked into our bedroom and saw Jenna's gym bag on the dresser, the same bag she'd been guarding like Fort Knox lately. My hands shook as I unzipped it. Holy hell. Inside was enough adult entertainment to stock a seedy novelty shop. Toys I'd never seen before, expensive-looking bottles of lubricant, lingerie with the tag still on. None of it had ever made an appearance in our bedroom. 20 years of marriage, and my wife was buying toys for another man. The shower was still running. I heard Jenna humming, actually humming, some pop song. She was happy, happier than I'd seen her in years. That's when the idea hit me. I grabbed the superglue from my toolbox, industrial strength, the kind that bonds metal permanently. The same stuff that had saved my ass countless times when a quick fix was needed. If Jenna wanted to play with toys, I'd make sure she got exactly what she was shopping for. Working quickly, I opened every bottle, every package. A few drops here, a squeeze there. Not enough to be obvious, but enough to make things interesting. I sealed everything back up, arranged it exactly as I'd found it, and zipped the bag closed. Eddie? Is that you? Jenna called from the bathroom. Just grabbing a clean shirt, I called back, my voice surprisingly steady. Got grease all over this one. Okay, honey. I'm going to bed early tonight. Big day tomorrow. Big day indeed. I went back to the garage and tried to focus on the carburetor, but my hands were shaking. What had I done? This wasn't like me. I was the steady one, the reliable one. Eddie Morrison didn't play games or seek revenge. He fixed problems and moved on. But as I sat there in my garage, surrounded by the tools and parts that made sense in a way my marriage no longer did, I realized something had shifted. Maybe it was time Eddie Morrison learned how to break things instead of always fixing them. The next morning, Jenna was up early, practically bouncing around the kitchen. She wore a new workout outfit. Tight, expensive. The kind that showed off everything she'd been toning at the gym. Morning, honey, she said, not quite meeting my eyes. I've got an early session today. Might be late getting home. Session, huh? I sipped my coffee, watching her grab the gym bag. With anyone I know? Just, regular clients. She hefted the bag over her shoulder. This thing's getting heavy. I really need to clean it out. Maybe after your session, I suggested. Wouldn't want to be unprepared. She kissed my cheek, a quick, guilty peck, and headed for the door. See you tonight. I watched through the kitchen window as she drove away in her Honda CR-V, the same car I'd been maintaining for 8 years. The same woman I'd been maintaining for 20. My phone rang around 11:30. Harlow General Emergency, this is Nurse Bonnie. Are you Edward Morrison? My heart hammered. Yes, that's me. Your wife Jenna is here in the ER. She's fine, But there's been an unusual situation. You might want to come down. What kind of situation? A pause, then barely contained laughter in the nurse's voice. Sir, I think it's better if you see for yourself. But you might want to bring a change of clothes for your wife, and maybe her friend. I drove to the hospital with my windows down, grinning like an idiot. The autumn air was crisp, the leaves just starting to turn. It was shaping up to be a beautiful day. Harlow General's ER was buzzing with activity. I found Nurse Bonnie at the desk, a woman in her 40s with kind eyes and a barely suppressed smirk. Mr. Morrison, your wife is in room 3. Fair warning, she's not in the best mood. What exactly happened? Bonnie glanced around, then leaned closer. Let's just say someone's been experimenting with adhesives. Industrial strength adhesives. We've got 2 patients who are attached in ways that required medical intervention. I nodded gravely. That sounds serious. Oh, it is. Dr. Peterson had to use mineral spirits and a lot of patience. Your wife and her workout partner are going to be sore for a few days. Room 3 was behind a curtain. I could hear voices, Jenna's, high and panicked, and a male voice I recognized as Matt's. How the hell did this happen? Matt was saying. This is impossible. I don't know. Jenna's voice cracked. Everything was fine, and then... Oh God, Eddie's here. I pushed through the curtain. Jenna sat on the examination table wearing a hospital gown, her face red with embarrassment and fury. Matt stood nearby in scrubs that clearly weren't his perfect hair disheveled. Hey, honey, I said casually. Heard you had some kind of accident. Accident? Jenna's eyes blazed. Eddie, I swear to God, if you had anything to do with this... With what? I've been at work all morning. Ask anyone. I turned to Matt with mock concern. You okay there, champ? You look a little... stuck up. Matt's jaw clenched. This isn't funny, man. Your wife could have been seriously hurt. My wife? I let that hang in the air. Funny. I thought she was just your client. What exactly were you 2 doing that required medical attention? Silence. Beautiful, damning silence. Dr. Peterson entered, a tired-looking man in his 50s. Mr. Morrison? Your wife is fine. No permanent damage. We've managed to separate. Well, let's just say someone played a very dangerous prank. Industrial superglue can cause chemical burns. Superglue? I frowned. How would superglue get involved in a workout session? More silence. Jenna stared at the floor. Well, the doctor continued, it appears someone tampered with certain personal items. The adhesive was mixed with lubricant, which created a bonding agent when exposed to body heat and friction. I nodded thoughtfully. That's terrible. Who would do such a thing? Matt stepped forward. Look, Morrison, that's Mr. Morrison to you, kid. My voice went cold. And I think you've done enough for one day. Maybe it's time you found a new gym to work at. Eddie, please, Jenna started. Please what? Please pretend I don't know what's going on? Please act like my wife wasn't screwing around with Captain America here? I looked between them. How long? Eddie, how long? 6 months, she whispered. 6 months. While I was working overtime to pay for her gym membership and new clothes. While I was fixing her car and unclogging her drains and being the reliable husband she could count on while she got her thrills elsewhere. Well, I said finally, I guess this is what they call getting caught with your pants down. I turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and Jenna? Next time you want to stick with someone new, maybe choose better glue. I hear the cheap stuff doesn't hold. The story hit Harlow like a meteor. By the time I got back to Precision Auto Parts, 3 people had already called to ask if it was true that my wife and her trainer had been glued together, naked, at the hospital. Small towns are like that. Gossip travels faster than bad news, and this was both. Eddie, my coworker Jake called out as I walked into the shop. Dude, is it true? Did Jenna really get stuck to that pretty boy from the gym? I shrugged, grabbing my coveralls. Don't know what you're talking about, Jake. I just fix cars. But Jake wasn't buying it. Neither was anyone else. By lunch, half the town knew some version of the story. The details got more creative with each telling. By afternoon, some people were saying Jenna and Matt had been found glued to gym equipment. Others claimed they'd been stuck together for hours before anyone found them. The truth was embarrassing enough. I was under the hood of a Ford pickup when my phone buzzed. Text message from Amy, my daughter. Dad, what the hell did you do? Mom is freaking out. She says you ruined her life. I typed back, just fixed a problem, sweetheart. How's school? Don't change the subject. Mom says she's staying at Aunt Linda's tonight. She wants to talk to you tomorrow. Aunt Linda, Jenna's sister who lived across town, not Seattle. Another lie, but a small one compared to the rest. My phone rang. Mitch. Eddie, you magnificent bastard. His voice boomed through the speaker. Please tell me you're responsible for the greatest prank in Harlow history. Can't talk now, Mitch. I'm at work. Meet me at Murphy's after 5. Drinks are on me. Hell, drinks are on me all week. Murphy's Pub was Harlow's main watering hole, a dim place with sticky floors and the best wings in town. I'd been going there with Mitch every Friday for 15 years. It felt strange walking in on a Tuesday, but everything felt strange now. Mitch was already at our usual table, a pitcher of beer waiting. He stood up and clapped me on the back hard enough to rattle my teeth. Eddie Morrison, you sneaky son of a bitch. 20 years I've known you, and I never figured you for the revenge type. I don't know what you're talking about. I poured myself a beer and took a long drink. Right. And I don't know anything about hardware. Mitch leaned forward, grinning. Industrial superglue, right? The good stuff. I sold you a tube last week. I use that for engine repairs. Sure you do. And Jenna uses adult toys for physical therapy. He raised his glass. To Eddie Morrison, who finally grew a pair. We drank in comfortable silence for a while. Murphy's was filling up with the after-work crowd, and I noticed the looks. Some sympathetic, some amused, some curious. Everyone knew. So what now? Mitch asked finally. Now I go home to an empty house and figure out what 20 years of marriage is worth. You filing for divorce? I hadn't thought that far ahead. This morning I'd been a married man with a cheating wife. Tonight I was... what? Free? Alone? Vindicated? I don't know, Mitch. I really don't know. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Amy. Dad, please call me. I'm coming home this weekend. We need to talk. Then another number I didn't recognize. This is Matt. We need to talk. Meet me at Elite Fitness tomorrow at 8 p.m. I showed the message to Mitch. He whistled low. Kid's got balls, I'll give him that. You going? Maybe. Might be interesting. Want backup? I considered it. Mitch was built like a linebacker and had the temperament to match, but this was my mess to handle. No, but thanks. This is between me and Captain America. We stayed until closing time, talking about everything except my marriage. Mitch told stories about difficult customers at the hardware store. I complained about the new emission standards making my job harder. Normal conversation between old friends, as if my life hadn't exploded that morning. But when I got home to my empty house, reality hit hard. 20 years of shared space suddenly felt cavernous. Jenna's coffee mug in the sink. Her romance novels stacked on the nightstand. The indent in her pillow, where her head had rested the night before. Probably dreaming about Matt. I grabbed a beer from the fridge and sat in my recliner, staring at the blank TV screen. What had I done? The prank had seemed brilliant in the moment, poetic justice for a cheating wife. But now, in the quiet of my empty house, it felt petty, cruel even. My phone rang. Jenna. Eddie, we need to talk. I figured we might. Not over the phone. Can you come to Linda's? No. If you want to talk, come home. This is still your house, too. A long pause. I'll be there in an hour. She arrived at 9:30, looking smaller somehow. The confidence she'd worn like armor for months was gone, replaced by something that might have been shame. I suppose you're proud of yourself, she said, not meeting my eyes. Not particularly. I gestured to the couch. Sit. She perched on the edge of the cushion like she might bolt at any moment. What you did today, that was cruel, Eddie, and dangerous. What I did? I didn't make you cheat, Jenna. I didn't make you lie for 6 months. I didn't make you fall in love with some kid young enough to be our son. Matt's not a kid. He's 29. Our daughter is 20. That makes him a kid. I leaned forward. Why, Jenna? What did I do wrong? What didn't I give you? She was quiet for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. You didn't do anything wrong. That's the problem. I don't understand. You're safe, Eddie. Reliable. You fix my car and unclog the drains and bring home a steady paycheck. You're a good man. But I'm 36 years old and I felt invisible, like I was just going through the motions. She looked up at me finally. Matt makes me feel alive. So this is my fault for being boring? No, that's not what I mean. She stood up, pacing. I don't expect you to understand. You're content with your life, your routine. I wanted more. More than 20 years of marriage? More than our daughter? More than a man who loved you? Loved? She caught the past tense. You don't love me anymore? I thought about it. Really thought about it. Did I love the woman who'd betrayed our marriage, lied to my face, made me the subject of town gossip? Or did I love the memory of who she used to be? I don't know, I said honestly. Ask me next week. She nodded like she'd expected that answer. I'm staying at Linda's for a while, until we figure things out. And Matt? That's over. After today, God, Eddie, do you know how humiliating that was? Half the hospital staff saw us. The stories all over town. Good. She stared at me. Good? You humiliated me for 6 months, Jenna. Every time you lied about where you were going. Every time you came home from being with him. Every time our friends asked why you were so distant. You made me look like a fool. So you decided to make me look like one too? I decided to show everyone who you really are. The words hung between us like a blade. Jenna's face crumpled, and for a moment I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. I'll come by tomorrow to get some clothes, she said finally. Take whatever you need. She paused at the door. Eddie? I really am sorry. I never meant for it to go this far. How far did you mean for it to go? She didn't have an answer for that. After she left, I sat in my recliner until midnight, drinking beer and thinking about 20 years of marriage. The good times. Amy's birth, family vacations, quiet Sunday mornings. The bad times. Fights about money, stress from work, the slow drift that had started years before Matt came along. Maybe Jenna was right. Maybe I had gotten too comfortable, too predictable. But comfort and predictability were what marriage was supposed to provide, a safe harbor in a chaotic world. Apparently, my wife had wanted chaos instead. My phone buzzed with one final message of the day, from a number I didn't recognize. Mr. Morrison, this is Tanya Walsh, owner of Elite Fitness. We need to discuss your wife's membership and the incident today. Please call me tomorrow. I turned off the phone and went to bed in an empty house, wondering what tomorrow would bring. Elite Fitness sat on the corner of Main and Elm like a glass monument to vanity. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed off rows of gleaming equipment and the people sweating on them. I'd driven past it 1,000 times, never imagining my marriage would end inside its walls. Matt was waiting by the front desk when I walked in at 8 p.m. sharp. He'd traded his hospital scrubs for jeans and a tight black t-shirt that showed off his gym-sculpted physique. Even disheveled and embarrassed, he looked like he'd stepped out of a fitness magazine. Morrison. He nodded toward a corner where we could talk privately. Thanks for coming. Wouldn't miss it. I followed him past the weight machines and treadmills. A few people glanced our way. Word had spread fast, and we were both minor celebrities now. Look, Matt started, running a hand through his perfectly styled hair. What happened today was messed up. Jenna could have been seriously hurt. But she wasn't. No thanks to you. His jaw tightened. That was a sick thing to do, man. Psychotic. I studied his face. Young, earnest, probably used to getting his way with a smile and a flex. You know what's sick, Matt? Screwing another man's wife for 6 months. But I guess they don't teach ethics in personal trainer school. It wasn't like that. What was it like? He shifted uncomfortably. Jenna was unhappy. She needed someone who understood her. Understood her need to cheat on her husband. Understood her need to feel desired. When's the last time you looked at your wife? Really looked at her? When's the last time you told her she was beautiful? The question hit harder than I expected, because I couldn't remember. Somewhere along the way, Jenna had become part of the furniture. Always there, reliable, taken for granted. So this is my fault? I'm not saying that, but maybe if you'd paid more attention to your wife, she wouldn't have needed to find it somewhere else. And you were happy to provide it. I care about her. His voice rose slightly. I love her. You love her? Kid, you barely know her. You know the version of her that shows up at the gym in tight clothes, ready to play pretend for an hour? You don't know the woman who snores, who leaves dishes in the sink, who cries during insurance commercials. I know enough. I laughed, surprising myself. You know what? You're right. You should be with Jenna. You two deserve each other. That caught him off guard. What? I'm serious. Take her. Marry her if you want. But first, let me tell you what you're signing up for. I stepped closer. Jenna gets bored easily. Right now you're exciting because you're forbidden. But give it a year of living together, paying bills together, dealing with real life together, and you'll be just another comfortable routine. You're wrong. Am I? How many other married women have you trained, Matt? How many other bored housewives looking for excitement? His silence was answer enough. Here's the thing about cheaters, I continued. They don't cheat because something's wrong with their marriage. They cheat because something's wrong with them. And if Jenna can cheat on a husband of 20 years, what makes you think she won't cheat on you? Because I'm not you, he said quietly. That stung, but I pressed on. No, you're not. You're younger, better looking, more exciting. For now. But time comes for everyone, kid. Your abs will go soft, your hair will thin, your knees will creak when you get out of bed. And when that happens, Jenna will be looking around for the next upgrade. You're bitter. I'm realistic. But hey, don't take my word for it. Ask her about the guy before you. His expression changed. What guy? You didn't think you were the first, did you? I was lying, but his face told me I'd hit close to something. Jenna's been unhappy for years, Matt. You're just the latest in the line of distractions. You're lying. Ask her. Ask her about David from her book club. Ask her about the tennis instructor from 2 summers ago. Ask her why she really joined this gym in the first place. I was making it all up, but doubt was creeping into his eyes. Good. You know what the really funny part is? I continued. I actually feel sorry for you. You think you won some prize, but all you got was my problem. Congratulations. I turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and Matt? Stay away from my house. Stay away from my daughter. And if I hear you've been spreading stories about what happened today, we'll have a different kind of conversation. The kind that involves my fists and your pretty face. I left him standing there, doubt and anger warring on his features. The parking lot was nearly empty, just a few cars belonging to die-hard fitness enthusiasts. I was unlocking my truck when I heard footsteps behind me. Mr. Morrison? I turned to see a woman in her 40s, professionally dressed despite the late hour. She had short blonde hair and the kind of confident bearing that said she was used to being in charge. Tanya Walsh, she said, extending a hand. We spoke on the phone. I shook her hand, noting her firm grip. The gym owner. That's right. I was hoping we could talk. About what? About the situation with your wife and my employee, and about how we can resolve this without any more drama. I leaned against my truck. I'm listening. What happened today was unfortunate for everyone involved. Jenna's embarrassed, Matt's humiliated, and frankly, it's not great publicity for my business. I imagine not. I'm prepared to offer your wife a full refund on her membership and training sessions. In exchange, I'd appreciate your discretion about the details of today's incident. My discretion? The story's already out there, obviously, but there are details, medical details, personal details, that could be damaging if they spread further. I studied her face. Tanya Walsh was worried about more than just bad publicity. She was worried about lawsuits, investigations, maybe even criminal charges if someone decided the superglue incident was assault. What makes you think I have any control over what people say? You're the wronged husband, Mr. Morrison. People will listen to you. If you ask for privacy, for the sake of your family's dignity, most decent people will respect that. And if I don't, then this story gets bigger. Media attention, maybe legal complications. Is that really what you want for your daughter? She had a point. Amy was already dealing with her parents' marriage falling apart. Adding media circus to the mix would only make things worse. What do you want me to do? Nothing dramatic, just if people ask for details, maybe suggest that it's a private family matter, that you'd appreciate their discretion. And in return, Jenna's membership fees refunded, and Matt finds employment elsewhere. Clean slate for everyone. It was a reasonable offer, maybe even generous, but something in Tanya's manner bothered me. Too smooth, too prepared, like she'd dealt with this kind of situation before. How long have you known about Jenna and Matt? I asked. I beg your pardon? You run a small gym. You know your trainers, your clients. How long have you known they were sleeping together? She shifted uncomfortably. I don't monitor my employees' personal lives. That's not what I asked. A long pause. I had suspicions, but what consenting adults do outside of business hours isn't my concern. Even when it happens in your gym? Her face went pale. I don't know what you're implying. I'm not implying anything. I'm asking directly. Were Jenna and Matt using your gym for their hookups? Mr. Morrison, I think this conversation is over. I think you're right. I opened my truck door. But Tanya, if I find out you enabled this affair, if I find out you provided the location or covered for them, our next conversation won't be nearly as polite. I drove home through Harlow's quiet streets, past the hardware store where Mitch was, probably, closing up, past Murphy's pub where the regulars were settling in for the night, past the normal life I'd been living just 24 hours ago. My phone was full of messages when I got home. Amy saying she was driving down from school tomorrow and we needed to talk. My sister Carol from Vermont, who'd somehow heard the story and wanted to make sure I was okay. 3 guys from work, offering everything from sympathy to congratulations. And one message that made my blood run cold. It was from a number I didn't recognize, but the voice was familiar. Eddie, this is Tom Bradley. We need to talk. Call me, Tom Bradley. My oldest friend in Harlow, going back to high school. Best man at my wedding, godfather to Amy. We'd been close once, but had drifted apart over the years as life got in the way. I called him back, dreading what I might hear. Eddie, Jesus, what have you done? Hello to you too, Tom. This isn't a joke. Do you have any idea how serious this could get? What are you talking about? I'm talking about assault charges. I'm talking about criminal liability. I'm talking about you going to jail for what you did today. Tom was a lawyer now, had been for 15 years. If he was worried about criminal charges, maybe I should be too. It was just a prank, Tom. A prank? You could have killed someone. Industrial adhesive can cause chemical burns, respiratory problems, but it didn't. That's not the point. Intent matters, Eddie. And right now, it looks like you deliberately tried to harm your wife and her lover. The word lover hit like a slap. So what do you suggest? Get a lawyer. A real one, not your old high school buddy. And stop talking to people about this. Anything you say can be used against you. Used against me by who? By Matt's lawyer, for starters. He's already called my office asking about civil suits. Pain and suffering, emotional distress, medical expenses. He's suing me? He's thinking about it. And Eddie, Jenna's talking about filing charges too. The phone felt heavy in my hand. Jenna wants me arrested? She's scared, man. She thinks you've lost it, that you might do something worse. I'm not going to hurt anyone. I believe you, but after today, she doesn't. And honestly, Eddie, I'm not sure I blame her. We talked for another 10 minutes, Tom giving me the names of criminal defense attorneys and advising me to keep my mouth shut. When I hung up, I sat in my kitchen staring at the phone. 24 hours ago, I had been the wronged husband, the victim of a cheating wife. Now I was potentially facing criminal charges and civil lawsuits. The prank that had seemed so clever, so justified, was turning into a nightmare. But as I sat there in my empty house, thinking about Jenna and Matt glued together in that hospital room, I realized something surprising. I still wasn't sorry. Amy arrived the next morning looking like she hadn't slept in days. My daughter had always been beautiful, but now she looked older somehow, worn down by the weight of her parents' collapsed marriage. She sat at the kitchen table nursing a cup of coffee, while I made scrambled eggs nobody would eat. Dad, what were you thinking? Straight to the point. Amy had never been one to dance around difficult topics. I was thinking your mother was cheating on me and deserved some consequences. Consequences? Dad, she could have been seriously hurt, but she wasn't. That's not the point. Amy's voice cracked. You could go to jail for this. Do you understand that? I set down my spatula and looked at my daughter. Really looked at her. She had Jenna's eyes, but my stubborn chin. 20 years old, studying pre-law at UMass, probably seeing the situation more clearly than anyone. Yes, I understand that. Then why did you do it? How do you explain 20 years of marriage to someone who's never been in love? How do you describe the slow erosion of respect? The gradual realization that the person you trusted most in the world has been lying to your face. Because I was angry. Because I felt helpless. Because your mother made me feel like a fool, and I wanted her to know how it felt. Amy stared into her coffee cup. She called me last night. She's scared of you now. Scared of me? I've never laid a hand on your mother in 20 years. She thinks you might snap, do something violent. And what do you think? Amy looked up at me, and I saw tears in her eyes. I think my dad isn't the man I thought he was. That hurt worse than anything Tom had said about lawyers and criminal charges. Amy, I know this is hard. Hard? Dad, my friends are texting me about my parents being the laughingstock of some small town I barely remember. My mom is staying with Aunt Linda and crying every time I call. And my dad, who I always thought was the most decent man I knew, is making jokes about gluing people together. I'm not making jokes. Aren't you? Mitch posted something on Facebook about it. He thinks it's hilarious. I made a mental note to have a conversation with Mitch about social media discretion. I'm sorry you're caught in the middle of this. I'm not in the middle, Dad. I'm on the outside looking at two people I love destroying each other. She stood up, her coffee untouched. I'm going to see Mom. Then I'm driving back to school. Amy, wait! I can't be here right now. I can't watch you two tear each other apart. She left without another word, and I was alone again in my too-quiet house. My phone rang an hour later. Eddie, we got a problem. What kind of problem? The kind where 3 guys just walked into my store asking questions about you. Expensive suits, serious faces. One of them bought a tube of the same superglue I sold you last week. What did you tell them? Nothing. But Eddie, these weren't cops. Cops would have shown badges. These guys felt like lawyers. I'll be right there. Mitch's Hardware occupied a narrow building on Main Street that had been selling tools and supplies since the 1940s. It was the kind of place where you could find anything from penny nails to industrial solvents, and where Mitch knew every customer by name. I found him in the back office, looking uncharacteristically worried. They left about 10 minutes ago, he said. Asked about your purchase history, what kind of adhesives you buy, how often you come in. Professional questions. What did you tell them? That customer information is private unless they got a warrant. But Eddie, they weren't just fishing. They knew exactly what they were looking for. Matt's building a case. Or Jenna is. Mitch leaned back in his chair. Look, I'm your friend, and I'll back you up however I can. But maybe it's time to think about damage control. Meaning? Meaning maybe you should apologize. Public, sincere, the whole 9 yards. Show everyone you're not some psycho who goes around gluing people together. I'm not apologizing for defending myself. You're not defending yourself anymore, Eddie. You're attacking. And it's going to get you in trouble. Before I could respond, the front door chimed. Through the office window, I could see Tom Bradley walking toward us, his lawyer face firmly in place. Eddie, we need to talk. Now. Tom looked like he'd aged 5 years overnight. His usually perfect hair was disheveled, his tie loose, his expression grim. It's worse than I thought, he said without preamble. Matt filed a civil suit this morning. Assault, intentional infliction of emotional distress, medical expenses. He's asking for $50,000 in damages. $50,000, Mitch whistled. For some superglue? It's not about the glue, Tom explained. It's about intent. Matt's claiming Eddie deliberately tried to cause him physical and emotional harm. And Jenna? I asked. She hasn't filed anything yet. But her lawyer called my office. They want a meeting. Her lawyer? When did she get a lawyer? This morning. Patricia Hendricks, one of the best divorce attorneys in the county. The hits kept coming. Divorce? She's filing papers next week. And Eddie, She's going for everything. The house, half your pension, alimony. She's claiming you've become unstable and dangerous. I sat down heavily in Mitch's spare chair. 24 hours ago, I'd been the victim. Now I was facing lawsuits, divorce proceedings, and potential criminal charges. What do you recommend? Settle with Matt. Pay him something, maybe 10 or 15,000, and make this go away. As for Jenna, that's going to be harder. Divorce cases get ugly, especially when there's infidelity involved. She cheated on me, and you assaulted her lover. In the eyes of the law, your response was disproportionate to her offense. So she wins? She gets to cheat and take half my stuff, and I get to pay for the privilege? Tom's expression softened slightly. Eddie, I know this sucks. I know it feels unfair, but sometimes the smart play is to cut your losses and move on. And if I don't want to be smart, then you fight. But fighting means more lawyers, more money, more public humiliation, and you might still lose. I looked at Mitch, who was studying his hands, my oldest friend in the world, and he couldn't meet my eyes. What do you think, Mitch? I think you got dealt a shit hand, and now you're trying to decide whether to fold or go all in. That's not advice. Here's my advice. Whatever you decide, decide fast, because right now, you're bleeding money and reputation every day this drags on. Tom left after giving me the names of 2 more lawyers and a stern warning about staying away from Jenna and Matt. Mitch locked up the store early and we went to Murphy's, where the afternoon crowd was smaller and less interested in our conversation. You know what the worst part is? I said after my second beer. What's that? Everyone's treating me like the bad guy, like I'm some kind of monster for being upset that my wife was cheating. You're not a monster, Eddie, but you did something stupid. I did something satisfying. Same thing in this case. Mitch signaled the bartender for another round. Look, you want my honest opinion? Shoot. Cut your losses. Pay Matt, give Jenna the divorce she wants, and start over. You're 39 years old, you got a good job, no criminal record. You can rebuild. With what? If Jenna gets half of everything, I'll be living in a studio apartment and eating ramen noodles. Better than living in a jail cell eating mystery meat. He had a point, but it stuck in my craw. The idea of rewarding Jenna's infidelity with a big payday, of letting Matt profit from sleeping with my wife, of being painted as the villain in my own story. There's got to be another way. Like what? I didn't have an answer. Not yet. We drank until Murphy's got crowded with the dinner rush. Then I drove home through streets that felt increasingly hostile. Every person I passed seemed to be staring, judging, whispering about the crazy man who glued his wife to her lover. My house felt like a crime scene. Everything reminded me of Jenna. Her coffee mug still in the sink, her magazines on the coffee table, her scent lingering in the bedroom we'd shared for 15 years. I was contemplating the bottom of a beer bottle when my phone rang. Unknown number. Mr. Morrison? This is Detective Sarah Chen with the Harlow Police Department. I'd like to ask you a few questions about the incident at Harlow General yesterday. My blood went cold. Am I under arrest? No, sir. But we have received a complaint, and I'd like to get your side of the story. Could you come down to the station tomorrow morning? Do I need a lawyer? That's your choice, Mr. Morrison. But I'd like to resolve this as quickly and quietly as possible, for everyone's sake. After she hung up, I sat in my empty house and realized that Mitch was right. I was bleeding money, reputation, and time. Every day this continued. But I was also realizing something else. I wasn't ready to fold just yet. If they wanted to paint me as the villain, maybe it was time to give them a real villain to worry about. Detective Sarah Chen was younger than I'd expected, maybe early 30s, with sharp eyes and the kind of no-nonsense demeanor that probably served her well in a small-town police department. She led me to a sparse interview room that smelled like industrial disinfectant and broken dreams. Mr. Morrison, I appreciate you coming in voluntarily, she began, setting a digital recorder on the table. This is just a preliminary interview. You're not under arrest, and you're free to leave at any time. But you're recording it. Standard procedure. Do you object? I thought about Tom's warnings about keeping my mouth shut, but something in Detective Chen's manner suggested this was more fact-finding than interrogation. No objection. Good. Now I want to hear your version of what happened 2 days ago. I told her the truth, about finding Jenna's affair, about the superglue, about my state of mind. Chen listened without interruption, occasionally making notes. Mr. Morrison, did you intend to cause physical harm to your wife or Mr. Patterson? No, I intended to embarrass them. Were you aware that industrial adhesive could cause chemical burns or other injuries? I didn't think about that part. But you work with industrial materials in your job. You understand their properties. She had me there. Yes, I understand them. So you knew there was a risk of injury when you tampered with those items. I could see where this was heading. I knew there was a risk of embarrassment. I thought that was appropriate. Chen made another note. Mr. Morrison, I'm going to be straight with you. Mr. Patterson wants to press charges. Assault with a dangerous weapon, reckless endangerment, maybe more. The DA is reviewing the case. And what do you think? She leaned back in her chair, studying me. I think you're a man who found out his wife was cheating and did something stupid. I also think you're not a danger to the community. But what you did was illegal. And if this goes to trial, you're looking at serious charges. What are my options? That's not for me to say. But if I were you, I'd be talking to a lawyer about plea bargains and restitution. The interview lasted another 20 minutes, covering the same ground from different angles. When it was over, Chen walked me to the lobby. Mr. Morrison, for what it's worth, I'm sorry about your marriage, but revenge isn't justice. It's just more pain. I drove home thinking about her words. More pain. That's certainly what the last 3 days had brought, for everyone involved. My phone was buzzing when I walked into the house. Amy. Dad, I just talked to Mom's lawyer. She's filing for divorce tomorrow, and she wants you out of the house by the end of the week. She can't do that. It's my house, too. She's claiming she's afraid of you. Her lawyer says they can get a restraining order. A restraining order? Amy, I've never threatened your mother. You glued her to another man, Dad. A judge might see that as threatening behavior. I sank into my recliner, feeling the walls closing in. What else did the lawyer say? That if you contest the divorce, they'll make sure everyone knows about your violent tendencies. They'll drag this out in court, make it as public and humiliating as possible. And if I don't contest it, quiet divorce. You keep your pension, but Mom gets the house and alimony for 5 years. 5 years of alimony for a woman who cheated on me? Dad, please. Just take the deal. End this before it gets worse. After Amy hung up, I sat in the growing darkness of my living room, thinking about the last 3 days. The satisfaction of watching Jenna and Matt get their comeuppance had faded, replaced by the grinding reality of legal bills, social ostracism, and financial ruin. Maybe everyone was right. Maybe it was time to cut my losses and move on. But then I thought about Matt, probably laughing about the whole situation with his gym buddies. I thought about Jenna, playing the victim while she destroyed our 20-year marriage for a fling with a kid barely older than our daughter. I thought about becoming the cautionary tale people told at dinner parties. Poor Eddie Morrison, whose wife cheated on him and then took him for everything he was worth. My phone rang. Unknown number again. Mr. Morrison? This is Dr. Peterson from Harlow General. I treated your wife and Mr. Patterson the other day. Is everything okay? They're both fine, physically. But I wanted to talk to you about something. Could we meet? Somewhere private? We agreed to meet at a coffee shop on the outskirts of town, away from curious eyes and gossip. Dr. Peterson was waiting in a corner booth when I arrived, looking tired and troubled. Mr. Morrison, what I'm about to tell you violates patient confidentiality, but I think you deserve to know. Know what? Your wife and Mr. Patterson. This wasn't their first visit to my ER. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. What do you mean? 3 months ago, they came in separately, about an hour apart. Both claimed sports injuries. She said she'd fallen during yoga. He said he'd pulled a muscle during training. But their injuries were consistent with vigorous sexual activity. They were hurt having sex. More specifically, they were hurt having rough sex in an inappropriate location. I treated similar injuries when I worked in Boston. Usually people who got carried away in public places. You think they were using the gym? I can't prove it, but yes. And Mr. Morrison, there's something else. When I was treating them the other day, Mr. Patterson made some comments about your wife. Very disrespectful comments. What kind of comments? Dr. Peterson looked uncomfortable. He called her a desperate housewife looking for excitement, said she was easy prey for someone like him. He seemed to think the whole situation was funny. The cold feeling in my stomach turned to fire. He was laughing about it? until the adhesive started working. Then he wasn't laughing anymore. Dr. Peterson left after giving me his card and suggesting I might want to share this information with my lawyer. I sat in the coffee shop for another hour, thinking about what he'd told me. Matt wasn't just sleeping with my wife. He was using her, laughing about her, treating her like a conquest. And Jenna, who was now painting me as the villain, had been sneaking around for months, using our shared gym membership to have sex with a man who had no respect for her. By the time I got home, I'd made a decision. I wasn't folding, I wasn't taking the deal, and I wasn't going down without a fight. I called Tom Bradley. Eddie, please tell me you're calling to discuss settlement terms. I'm calling to discuss strategy. I want to fight this thing. Eddie, we've been through this. Fighting means, I know what fighting means, but I just learned some things that changed the equation. I told him about Dr. Peterson's revelations. Tom was quiet for a long time. That's interesting information, but it doesn't change the fact that you committed assault. Maybe not, but it changes the narrative. Jenna wasn't just having an affair. She was having public sex in a gym she paid for with our joint checking account. And Matt wasn't just sleeping with a married woman. He was bragging about it, calling her easy prey. Where are you going with this? I'm going with the idea that maybe I'm not the only one who did something wrong. Maybe it's time to stop playing defense and start playing offense. Eddie, I strongly advise against, Tom, you're my friend, but you're not my lawyer. I need someone who's willing to fight dirty. And if you lose, then I lose. But at least I'll lose on my feet instead of on my knees. The next morning, I drove to Springfield and hired Patricia Walsh, a criminal defense attorney with a reputation for aggressive tactics and courtroom theatrics. She was expensive, but she listened to my story without judgment and smiled when I told her about Dr. Peterson's information. Mr. Morrison, you've got an interesting case here. The prosecution will argue that you committed assault, but we're going to argue that you were defending your marriage against predators who were using public facilities for illegal activity. Is that a real defense? It is now. We're also going to argue temporary insanity brought on by extreme emotional distress, and we're going to make sure everyone in that courtroom knows exactly what kind of people your wife and her boyfriend really are. What about the civil suit? We'll countersue. Alienation of affection. Intentional infliction of emotional distress. Fraud. Your wife used marital assets to facilitate her affair. By the time we're done, Matt Patterson will wish he'd never heard the name Morrison. And the divorce? That's a different lawyer, but I can recommend someone who specializes in high-conflict cases. Someone who won't be intimidated by threats of restraining orders and public humiliation. I left Patricia Walsh's office feeling something I hadn't felt in days. Hope. That evening, I got a call from Mitch. Eddie, what the hell are you doing? I just heard you hired Patricia Walsh. That woman's a shark. That's the idea. This is going to get ugly. It's already ugly, Mitch. The question is whether I'm going to let them bury me, or if I'm going to take some of them down with me. And Amy? How's she going to feel when her parents are tearing each other apart in court? That gave me pause. Amy was already struggling with the situation. A public court battle would only make things worse for her. I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. Eddie, I'm your friend, so I'm going to say this once. You're making a mistake. This isn't going to end the way you think it is. Maybe not, but it's going to end the way I want it to. 2 days later, the papers ran a story about the upcoming trials. Local man fights back against cheating wife and her lover, the headline read. The article painted me as either a wronged husband seeking justice or a dangerous man seeking revenge, depending on which quotes you believe. But for the first time in a week, I wasn't the only one being talked about. Matt Patterson's name was in the paper too, along with details about his relationship with a married woman. Jenna's name was mentioned as the cheating wife who used marital assets to facilitate her affair. The narrative was shifting. And I was just getting started. That night, I sat in my recliner with a beer and my phone, scrolling through social media comments about the article. Public opinion was split, but it wasn't entirely against me anymore. Some people were calling me a hero. Others were calling me a cautionary tale. But everyone was talking about Eddie Morrison, and for the first time in my adult life, I wasn't invisible. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This isn't over. You're going to regret this. I assumed it was from Matt, but when I called the number back, it went straight to voicemail. A woman's voice. You've reached Tanya Walsh at Elite Fitness. Interesting. The gym owner was making threats now. That suggested I was on the right track. I poured myself another beer and started planning my next move. If they wanted to play hardball, I was ready to show them what a real villain looked like. 3 weeks later, I sat in the Harlow County Courthouse watching my life get dissected by lawyers, reporters, and curious townspeople who had nothing better to do than watch their neighbors destroy each other. The criminal trial was set to begin in 2 days, but today was the preliminary hearing for Matt's civil suit. Patricia Walsh had been busy. In 3 weeks, she'd uncovered a pattern of behavior at Elite Fitness that made my superglue prank look like a minor infraction. Security camera footage showing Matt and Jenna using the gym after hours. Financial records showing that Tanya Walsh had been skimming membership fees and using the gym as a front for what amounted to an escort service for bored housewives. Your Honor, Patricia addressed the judge, what we have here isn't a simple case of assault. We have a complex web of fraud, adultery, and exploitation that my client stumbled into when he discovered his wife's affair. Matt's lawyer, a nervous-looking man named Stevens, objected. Your Honor, Mr. Morrison's alleged discoveries don't justify his criminal behavior. Perhaps not, Judge Harrison replied, but they certainly provide context. Ms. Walsh, you may proceed. Patricia smiled, like a shark scenting blood. Thank you, Your Honor. I'd like to call Dr. James Peterson to the stand. Dr. Peterson's testimony was devastating. He described Matt and Jenna's previous ER visit, the nature of their injuries, and Matt's disrespectful comments about my wife. The courtroom murmured with each revelation. Dr. Peterson, Patricia continued, in your medical opinion, were Mr. Patterson and Mrs. Morrison engaged in sexual activity in a public place? Based on their injuries and the circumstances, yes, almost certainly. And Mr. Patterson's comments about Mrs. Morrison, how would you characterize his attitude toward her? Predatory. He seemed to view her as a conquest rather than a person. Stevens objected again, but the damage was done. The narrative was shifting from wronged husband commits assault to predator gets comeuppance. Next, Patricia called Tanya Walsh to the stand. The gym owner looked nervous, her earlier confidence replaced by the demeanor of someone who knew she was in trouble. Miss Walsh, how long have you been aware of the relationship between Mr. Patterson and Mrs. Morrison? I don't monitor my employees' personal lives. That's not what I asked. How long have you been aware? Tanya glanced at her lawyer, then back at Patricia. A few months. And did you take any action to discourage this relationship? It wasn't my business. Wasn't it? Ms. Walsh, are you aware that using your business premises for sexual activity violates your business license? There's no proof that... Your Honor, I'd like to enter into evidence security footage from Elite Fitness, dated 3 months ago. The footage was grainy but clear enough. Matt and Jenna entering the gym at 11 p.m., leaving 2 hours later. The timestamp showed multiple similar visits over several months. Miss Walsh, this footage shows your employee and a client using your facility for non-business purposes after hours. Did you authorize this? No, but did you know about it? I suspected. Did you profit from it? Tanya's lawyer objected, but Patricia pressed on. Ms. Walsh, isn't it true that you've been operating Elite Fitness as more than just a gym? That you've been facilitating relationships between your male trainers and female clients for additional fees? The courtroom erupted. Judge Harrison called for order, but the damage was done. Tanya Walsh's face had gone white, and Stevens was frantically whispering with Matt. Your Honor, Stevens said, standing quickly, my client would like to withdraw his civil suit. On what grounds? On the grounds that we believe this matter would be better resolved outside of court. Judge Harrison looked skeptical. Mr. Patterson, is this your decision? Matt stood up, his perfect composure finally cracking. Yes, Your Honor. I withdraw my suit. Patricia wasn't finished. Your Honor, my client would like to file a countersuit for alienation of affection, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and fraud. Miss Walsh, do you have the paperwork? Right here, Your Honor. As the lawyers shuffled papers and the judge reviewed documents, I caught sight of Jenna in the gallery. She looked smaller than I remembered, older. The confident woman who had left our house 3 weeks ago had been replaced by someone who looked beaten down by the weight of public scrutiny. Our eyes met for a moment, and I saw something there that might have been regret, or maybe just exhaustion. After the hearing, Patricia and I walked to her car through a gauntlet of reporters and curious onlookers. How do you think it went? I asked. Better than I hoped. Matt's withdrawal of his suit is essentially an admission that he knows he can't win. And the information about Elite Fitness gives us leverage in the criminal case. What about Jenna? What about her? She's not pressing charges, and her divorce attorney has already reached out about settlement negotiations. Settlement? She wants out, Eddie. Quick and quiet. She's willing to give up her claim to alimony in exchange for an uncontested divorce. I thought about that as we drove back toward Harlow. Jenna was cutting her losses, just like everyone had advised me to do 3 weeks ago. What do you recommend? Take it. You keep your house, your pension, your dignity. She gets her freedom and whatever's left of her reputation. And Matt? Matt's going to have bigger problems than your countersuit. The state licensing board is investigating Elite Fitness, and the IRS is looking into Tanya Walsh's books. He'll be lucky if he's not facing criminal charges of his own. That evening I sat in my kitchen now, apparently, and thought about the last month. I'd gone from victim to villain to something approaching vindication. The cost had been enormous. Legal fees, stress, the loss of my marriage, and some friendships. But I was still standing. My phone rang. Amy. Dad, I saw the news about the hearing. And I wanted to say, I'm sorry. I didn't understand what was really going on. You don't need to apologize, sweetheart. This was between your mother and me. No, it wasn't. I took her side without knowing all the facts. I said some harsh things to you. You were protecting your mother. That's what daughters do. I should have been protecting both my parents. We talked for an hour, the longest conversation we'd had since this whole mess started. Amy was coming home for Thanksgiving, and for the first time in weeks, I had something to look forward to. The criminal charges were dropped 2 days later. The DA's office cited insufficient evidence of criminal intent and mitigating circumstances. Patricia Walsh's media campaign had worked. Public opinion had shifted enough that prosecuting me would have been political suicide. Matt Patterson left town a week after that. Word was he'd taken a job at a gym in Florida, far from the wreckage of his reputation in Massachusetts. Tanya Walsh's gym closed permanently after the state pulled her license. And Jenna? Jenna moved to her sister's place in Vermont. We signed the divorce papers on a cold December morning, sitting across from each other in a lawyer's office, like strangers conducting a business transaction. Eddie, she said as we prepared to leave, I want you to know, I never meant for any of this to happen. I know. Do you think you'll ever forgive me? I thought about it honestly. I don't know, Jenna. Ask me in a year. She nodded and walked out of my life. 6 months later, I was having dinner at Murphy's Pub with Mitch when a young woman approached our table. She was maybe 25, pretty in a wholesome way, with kind eyes and a nervous smile. Excuse me, are you Eddie Morrison? Depends who's asking. I'm Sarah Chen. I was the detective who interviewed you last year. I remembered her, the cop who told me revenge wasn't justice. You're out of uniform. I'm off duty. I wanted to buy you a beer and tell you something. What's that? You were right about Elite Fitness, about what was going on there. We found evidence of tax evasion, prostitution, drug dealing. Tanya Walsh is facing federal charges. And I wanted to apologize. I thought you were just another angry husband looking for revenge. I didn't realize you'd stumbled onto something bigger. Revenge, justice. Sometimes they look the same from the outside. Sarah smiled. Sometimes they are the same thing. She bought us around and stayed for an hour, talking about the case and its aftermath. When she left, she gave me